Welcome back to the Clarity Digital Pod, where we explore the intersection of marketing, leadership, and technology. Today, I'm joined by Nadia Davis, VP of Marketing at CaliberMind, a leading B2B platform in multi-touch attribution and go-to-market intelligence. Nadia and I dive deep into data integrity, single sources of truth, sales alignment, and how to finally stop debating dashboards and start having strategic conversations instead. If you're a B2B marketer or even just passionate about B2B marketing, this is a must-watch or listen. You won't want to miss the insights packed into this session. Let's get into it. All right, let's go. Nadia, welcome. How you doing today?
Thank you, Al. I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much. I'm going to briefly introduce you, then you can introduce yourself more. You and I met, I believe, as B2B Marketing Exchange. The one, I think, was in Atlanta, and then I saw you again in Scottsdale. And we had really good conversations, and I believe you also spoke at that event.
I did.
Yeah,
Both
and
of them.
both of them great. And I attended one of your sessions. They're really good stuff. And so I thought it would be very valuable for our audience. So if you don't mind introducing yourself in more detail, and so we can get started.
Absolutely. I'm Nadia Davis. I'm currently in the role of VP of Marketing at CaliberMind. And for those who don't know CaliberMind, we are in the multi-touch attribution and go-to-market intelligence space. Usually companies would look, once they're mid-market niche, they start growing, they start asking more questions of their data, they start asking harder questions of their marketing department. They want to understand how marketing is doing, how it's moving the needle for the organization. And usually at that stage, they're dealing with a lot of really complex data. They're looking at multiple systems, multiple data silos potentially. They probably have multiple people within the marketing organization. They're looking at building bridges and aligning across multiple go-to-market teams. This is where CaliberMind plays and has this function of bringing people together around the single source of truth data, where your analytics don't start a debate anymore. Nobody questions your data. You actually get to talk strategy. So that's a brief overview of where I've been. I came from a client side of CaliberMind, where I was actually a user, a power user. And I remember that one of the biggest pains that it solved for me were every Friday night, I'm Eastern time, right? My boss was Central. Every Friday night, 4 p.m., I would get a question. Hey, can you pull this report real quick for the leadership meeting on Monday? And I'm thinking, dude, it's 4 p.m. Like, there's nothing quick about reports. And once I pull it, there's going to be a question or two or three. Can we double click into that, right? But once this pain was democratized and access to the same data was opened in a way that required a person stitching all the data together to answer questions to the story, in my life literally changed. My Friday nights became mine again, which was really nice. But that kind of tells you my interest and my background within the area of marketing. I've always been more on the data science, marketing analytics, demand gen side, where project management and numbers were the forte for me. I love creative. I love the art side of marketing, design and copywriting and positioning. But I'm honest with myself. I think there are people out there who are much better at that than I am. I respect their talent. My talent side's on the numeric and measurement side of marketing.
And that seems to be the part of marketing that resonates with a lot of C-level, because at the end of the day, they want to see improvements in numbers, not necessarily how cute your website is or your social campaigns.
Which those things are important because
They're
we're
very
all
important.
visual creatures, right?
Sure. Yeah.
So
Now,
you're right. Measurement is so important. And I think it's because when it comes to investments are made in dollars. And that's what the C-level or the board level audience expects to get the answers in. It's this middle school math problem. I remember tutoring my daughter in math. Look at the units of measure, make sure your units of measure align. And I feel like the challenge for marketers is that we deal with engagement as units of measure, right? And we have to translate that into the output of dollars and speak the revenue language, where in a lot of cases, depending who you are on the marketing team, say if you're somebody who is doing PR or somebody who is doing social, somebody who is doing email, like if they get a personal goal that's a revenue-driven goal, or unit of measure is revenue, the boss would come to me and say, okay, now I need you to drive $100,000 per month in engagement. The person would be like, what does it mean? What does it mean? I send emails and I see clicks, I see opens. How do I translate into? And that's a challenge, because literally half of your marketing team, if not more, drives engagement and tries to become memorable and get people to come back and get people to spend time reading your stuff so that your brand, your messaging, your value prop can grow on them. And yet the output has to be put through this metamorphosis of sorts process turned into dollars. That's definitely a challenge.
Yeah, you speak my language and some of our pain points because we deal with different type of clients and being in the agency side and metrics, the KPIs that actually are measured tend to be a little bit different. What I've noticed is that when we work with startups that are funded, usually the most important person at a company sometimes is a CFO, not even a CEO, because they are entrusted with the money. And you can get away with impressions and clicks and keyword rankings and stuff like that for so long. Eventually, they want to see dollars. And when you work with a larger enterprises that are not startup, you still get questions on those QBR reports, and you got to be able to connect the dots. What is, like you said, the email open through rate? What did it mean in terms of revenue or bottom line? And that's where that having a multi-touch attribution marketing approach is very important as opposed to the last click. Because if you just look at the last click, don't do social media anymore because it's not converting into deals. But you and I, we both know that's pretty important, especially for B2B, where you have to be on LinkedIn and some of these social channels. So but what you said about earlier was the single source of truth. And that is something that I continue to struggle with. Some people look at the Google Analytics, some people look at their HubSpot data, even they all count things a little bit differently. How do you ensure a single source of truth and data integrity? And how does your company solve for that problem? Can elaborate a little bit more on it, be wonderful.
For sure. I think the notion of marketing data silos is nothing new. There's more and more shiny objects that us marketers fall for. Oh, look, somebody came up with this widget that does XYZ. Oh, look, there's another one that has an easy button. Oh, look, there's a third. It has an easier button. So I should go for that one. Like, before you know it, you get all of this stuff that generates data at the end of the day. And the challenge with all of these tools is that they generate different types of data. I always joke, I don't think it's a joke, there's some truth to that joke, that every business school freshman in college has to have data 101 course so that they can understand the rows and columns and data relationships, just the basics, right? Maybe in the future, maybe right now, that's what colleges are doing. Surely, I hope so. But in the past, there was never. So this notion of data and data integrity and how does it all come together? What are the requirements that you have to have for different types of data to be able to speak to each other and to relate to each other, right? People don't think about that. Their assumption is that some dashboard is going to show me something. I'm going to take that, put it into my spreadsheet, and then I just hope that all of that will somehow come together. It never does. But I also know that people get so excited once there's a dashboard and once you hit the go button, it starts generating numbers and voila, something happened. It's like this rattle and a toddler type of moment. But in reality, all of these platforms that generate data sometimes cannot even speak to each other. I'm not even talking integrations. I'm just talking data being in a different format that even if you export it, say in your CSV, right, there's nothing you can do about it because, say, in your Salesforce, you'll have people records. Your platform, LinkedIn, for example, has account level records that can be matched on the domain. And it's not for every account, it's for some, right? Well, when you just export stuff. And this is like the most simplistic way to explain it. And when you look at other functions within the C-suite, or even within the who report to the board at the executive level, right? You have the sales team that is very data driven. They have great data. Usually it's clear to know whether you have pipe or you don't have pipe, whether you have opportunities or you don't have opportunities. Very black and white. Finance, you mentioned CFOs. Finance has great data. It's very discrete. It's very It's clean in most cases. Marketing, on the other side, we're
All over the place.
all the dumpster fire of data everywhere, and we bring new tools to solve for that, but those tools end up generating even more data. So before you know, we're underwater and you cannot even come up for breath. So bringing all of this data together, that's the biggest challenge. So much so that I remember Scott Brinker just a couple months ago put out his State of Tech Stack report. That's the MarTech organization. They do a fantastic job putting out reports. One of the challenges around data that he cited is that 66% of respondents said that they have data integration challenges. So that's your answer, is just bring it all together. And another interesting stat answering your question about how do we do that is this notion that a completely different category on the fringes of the marketing world, the CDP category, customer data platforms, became so inflated. I think at one point in time, there were like 50 players, that companies decided that the space is too crowded. And a lot of those CDP platforms, a stat that also Scott Brinker brought to light, started merging with different marketing tools because the understanding of the need to have something to house your data, this robust foundation within a marketing platform where you can bring all this data together and model it and connect it based on the different identifiers, different records of truth between different data sources, that became a need. So it's no wonder that there are so many tools that have this CDP foundation, marketing warehouse or a data warehouse foundation, where all of the data manipulations, unification, transformation, cleansing, deduping, all of that happens. And the same is true for CaliberMind. So that's what we sit on. And once you have all of this data in a format that is clean, rows and columns, things match, then you can do amazing things with this data. You can answer your questions. You can remove duplicates. You can remove double counting. You can remove my stuff doesn't match your stuff. You can remove those awkward moments where your analytics start a debate
Yeah.
in an executive meeting, right? And you align and democratize this data where everybody can look, everybody believes what they see because it matches across all of the systems. And that's a hard thing to do.
That's amazing. And you said starting a debate. We literally last quarter was attending one of our clients' quarterly meeting as an agency. We just sit quiet and let them present in case there's a question, we'll jump in. And we pulled numbers, like just traffic, very basic numbers from Google Analytics. And then the in-house marketing manager had pulled some numbers previously from HubSpot and just basic stuff like traffic. And those numbers didn't match. It almost felt like we had a huge drop traffic, both paid and organic. And it took a little bit of head scratch and figure that out. And hey, one traffic source come from HubSpot and one came from Google Analytics. And they're both, like the point you mentioned earlier, different platforms that have different, they do things a little bit differently. And the way HubSpot, I believe, tracks a session and a visit to a website is very different than Google Analytics for. So that took a little bit of like just on the fly researching while they were questioning. And as we were able to answer that question, and then like we were told, once you go back and get us just agree on one source of truth, and when it comes to website traffic, and I pushed hard for Google Analytics. They went with HubSpot, but nevertheless, we fixed that data issue because we were looking at two different platforms, and that creates a huge problem when it comes to integration, because now you have your GA for it and you have your HubSpot, and then now going to the sales side, like you said, they only care about things like opportunities, and they don't care about MQL so much, because if for us, MQLs means somebody who's high intent, but sales, at the end of the day, sales cares about.
Are they ready to buy?
Exactly. And I feel like we might need a third department between sales and marketing to enable sales, because most of the sales alignment tactics that I've tried to use, we marketing people are very focused on branding and high level metrics. So what are some of your thoughts on just the whole marketing and sales alignment? I guess that's my question. That's where I'm trying to go when it comes to in regards to KPIs, because we don't want sales to lose trust in marketing. Be like, hey, this is an MQL that like doesn't mean anything for me. Like, where do we solve? What is your recommendation on bridging that gap?
It's fascinating to me how much of the trust element within this alignment you have to be mindful of for this alignment to work. This old African proverb comes to mind. And I remember I was into running. I spent 15 years racing. I had
Nice.
my PRs, I had my trophies. I would always research races to make the podium. Like that was my thing. So I came across that proverb in my racing days. And it went like this: if you want to run fast, run alone. If you want to run far, run with a team or run together, the proverb said. So ultimately, if you want to have longevity and sustainability as a business, you cannot get there alone, whether you like it or not. The larger the company, the bigger the team you have to work with. And you better make sure how to figure out your alignment, because that means that your efforts are multiplied now. It's
Yeah.
not just you trying to spin up stuff, right? Like you start, you hand off, and there's 10 more people that are doing the same while you're doing something else. And I think it's a very basic concept to understand. And yet, I feel like it's easier said than done, because credibility is a huge thing. Who did what and why should it matter? And how much trust can I put into what you have given to me to act on? Do I have time? Do I prioritize what you gave to me? All of that comes into play. And I feel like MQL has just became the scapegoat of all of this. This like the
Mhm.
case in point, because for the longest time, the serious decisions waterfall created MQL as a marketing metric. You could understand what an MQL is if you're not in marketing, if you're on the sales side, if you're on the finance side. It became a measurable thing within a discipline that appears to be immeasurable, because it's really hard to quantify. Like now we have more tools than ever. Traditionally, like how do you quantify marketing? And the notion that an MQL is the point of handoff is silly to me.
Yeah.
And the reason I'm saying that is because first, it starts with the definitions. How did you define an MQL? What is an MQL? You would find many a company where an MQL is a wide variety of things. Some of them are form fill, some of them are content downloads, some of them are fill in the blank. There's no rigid definition of what an MQL is. And what I found to be true is that when those definitions, whether you're coming into an organization and there's an existing infrastructure, you're starting a company and you're thinking about like the future state, or maybe you're reorging and you're trying to align with a new sales leader, right? Agreeing on what what criteria, what qualifications criteria make an MQL, that's huge. Because then people understand what that means. Like I gave you Bob Schmo. Like what does it mean if Bob Schmo is an MQL? Oh, if marketing gave it to me, these are the actions or the behaviors that took place. Maybe you get to the point where some sophisticated scoring becomes your measurement criteria, but usually it's a set of behaviors, right? And in a lot of cases, it's really not a person who is ready to talk to the sales team because they are ready to buy. It's a signal. Like this person has exhibited interest. Maybe this person belongs to the right company, the right ICP, ideal customer profile, or maybe not. Like how you define what you should do with an MQL should be warranted by researching who that person is, where they belong, the journey, the buyer's journey that took place, that they've traveled down on. The challenges are that usually, unless you're instrumented the right way, to collect all of those insights just takes forever. And marketing always complains that the sales team doesn't do research. Hey, I've been guilty of complaining like, hey, there are 5 places in Salesforce that I created for you. I've trained you to click on those 5 things. Why don't you, right? But it's 4 places too many for them. They want 1. And instrumentation takes a lot, right? So poverty of time, people doing multiple things, all of that. Again, going back to this alignment, if you define what that handoff looks like from marketing to sales with the sales leader, and then the sales leader can roll that out to the sales team, like you've just removed an obstacle of trying to convince and convert people of why they should trust you. And setting the expectations, like whether you're running an account-based marketing, go-to-market strategy, whether you're going leads first, it depends. Some people do both, because I've seen many a company where people have segments where it makes sense to go after leads because it's a small buying group, it's SMB, and usually the person who does all these things is the person who's trying to make a decision, right? So that could be your lead motion. Then you have the larger buying groups with enterprises, then that's your account-based motion. But defining what these things are, all of the abbreviations, all of the acronyms that marketing loves so much, so people understand if this landed on my dashboard, it's landed in my inbox, what do I do with it? And I feel like this notion of clarity, your name is Clarity Digital, right?
Mhm.
One of the values for CaliberMind is clarity, because we
Yes.
want to help people to understand and find their North Star in this mess of signals, data, poverty of time, lack of alignment, right? And what I noticed to be true, and this is specific to our tool, but that's the universe that I live in. So I'll just make this example, right? Without a pitch, one of the features that larger sales teams seem to love CaliberMind for the most, and they praise their marketing for enabling them with those kind of insights, saying our marketing spoils us, is that buyer's journey, right? If I take this one person or I take this one account, and within a couple of clicks, I can see everything that they've done, not just in HubSpot, not just in Marketo, not just on the website, but everywhere, like whichever place this crazy omni-channel buyer's journey has taken this person through. That's amazing. Now I know what to do. The generative AI summaries where you say, okay, so this account has 200 pages of engagement. I possibly cannot be expected to go through 200 pages and digest this data. Give me a generative AI summary of everything that is important for me to know. Give me the top 10 people that engaged the most, give me the campaigns that they engaged with, and tell me the timeline of when this happened so I know if they're still hot or not. Like that right there is the power of CaliberMind for the sales team. And that, in my mind, like is the ultimate pinnacle of marketing and sales alignment, where you're delivering insights that people can act on with the information that they need to choose how they're going to do this in outreach and engagement. There are other tools that do that. You can do it yourself. However, the maintenance and implementation and just rolling it out and just the amount of time that it would take for you to build something would be just insurmountable. But some people choose that route. That's totally fine. But I think being able to deliver insights that people can act on, that's the definition of marketing and sales alignment.
I'm so like amazed you said that, because we actually do that right now manually somewhat. We actually get the inquiries and call transcription and document through a spreadsheet, and then we have ChatGPT connect to a spreadsheet to identify informational versus transactional intent. And that kind of says something about the way I'm going about it, and that may not necessarily be the way you guys are going. Hey, from these conversations and transcriptions from the phone calls, which ones are informational or thought leadership, or which ones are transactional? Because I, as a user, download a bunch of thought leadership content all the time. That doesn't mean I'm ever going to become custom. I'm just trying to learn top 10 digital marketing tips in 2025. As a marketer, I need to be on top of it. So I download it, but that doesn't mean I'm ever going to buy your tool.
Exactly.
Now, but if you have another PDF is a case study or brochure or product, then the intent is a little bit different there. I'm actually showing some sort of interest. So going through that manually, especially at the larger enterprises, this is just impossible. So we have the tools right now to take advantage of that. And I'm really happy that your organization has actually made a proper tool out of that, because I think we marketers tend to hack things a little bit. So I'm definitely going to look into your tool, and not for us, but maybe to recommend to our clients. You touched ABM reporting, and I guess along the same line, ABM, like what ABM platform that we use, I think we use AdRoll or RollsWorks a lot. They give their own type of reporting. How much of that we should actually pay attention to versus what goes into HubSpot or Salesforce in terms of metrics as a marketer, not necessarily as a salesperson, because I want to be able to still look at some what they call vanity KPIs that actually I think it's still important to identify if your campaign is working or not. Click-through rates and conversion, stuff like that. Where is the happy medium? Like, how much should I focus on the KPIs that the platform reports and the actual real KPIs that you just mentioned?
I actually read an article that described, and I forget the name of the person who came up with the term vanity metrics.
Yeah.
But I read an article like how all of that came about. This was the rise of social media and clicks and likes and all the things that out of a sudden we could report on. But to your point, I don't think that what gets branded today as a vanity metric is necessarily a vanity metric only, and it's a means to an end. I think you asking questions, not just what, but also why, opens up your horizon as to what you should pay attention to. And some of the vanity metrics could be just vanity metrics. You look at them, you make a mental note, and you move on. Others, you might decide that you want to dig deeper because it's an outlier, for example. It's a vanity one, but it's an outlier, so it merits your attention. I think being able to bring all of that within a framework that is repeatable, that allows you to look at similar things every so often. If you're dealing with 5 platforms, like what you described, again, there's a method to the madness. You do not necessarily need to invest in yet another tool if you can do it yourself and it's scalable for you and you have a smaller team and everybody communicates, right? It just gets really hard when you're a larger company and you're looking not at 5, but at 50 or 500 or times whatever. But to your point, ABM reporting within platforms they all have their analytics module. I've been using it for years. And what it allows you to do, it allows you to look at the same set of data that you have, say, in your CRM, but in a different way with insights that may not flow into your CRM. For example, most CRMs are built for a nesting structure of people that nest into accounts, that nest into opportunities, right? Your CRMs, I'm sorry, your ABM platforms, they flip the script and they're saying, okay, now let's take the same kind of set of Lego blocks, but we just rebuild them and we look at account first, and then we're going to fold people into that. And then we're going to append opportunities in the hub and a spoke way of visualizing it to those accounts. So you get a different view. You can start seeing, okay, out of all of the accounts in my territory, these are the ones that are showing like top visits, top engagement, top clicks, whatever. Is that the entire universe of what's happening to those accounts? No, because your sales team is having meetings with people. They're talking on the phone, they're having dinners, they're shaking hands at events. Like, how would all of that make it into your ABM platform? It can't. There are complexities between all of the custom objects in Salesforce. There are complexities with data being structured or unstructured. Maybe it lives as notes in Salesforce. Maybe it lives in yet another system. So you have to be prepared that your view of performance and engagement within the ABM platform is a fractional view, right?
Yes.
Platforms are really good bringing in contact level for known contacts, the data into the platform. They can bring account level stuff and they can bring opportunity level stuff. But 99% of marketers that use Salesforce, they put a bunch of stuff in campaigns, campaign members, custom objects. Like none of that will ever make it into your ABM platform. So what people end up doing, I actually had several podcasts and conversations over the last month about ABM. People are still living in the world of spreadsheets, and it's sad because they're trying to distill, again, this noise everywhere down to their list of top 10, 20, 50 accounts, which they feel like, yes, I can manage it manually because there's just no other way to do it efficiently. And again, depending on how big that world is and how much time you want to spend aggregating this data, this may or may not be your preferred route of measuring ABM. But the fact that ABM goes beyond digital, I don't think is a disputed fact anymore because it
Sure.
truly does. Andrei Zienkiewicz has a really good kind of point of view on doing ABM right, where it's not just run out and buy a platform, but it's rather establish your goals and figure out what is it? Like what set of steps and actions you want to take for an account to convert from being a prospect to somebody who never knew about you to somebody who is actively talking to your sales team. Just take one or take
Yeah.
two, or take three, right? And just do these custom things. If you want to write handwritten notes and send them to all of the right people in that account and look up all of their addresses and where they live and whatnot, do that. But it's not a scalable thing. You cannot just push the button and say, hey, Sendoso, send 500 handwritten cards to all these people. So there's like still very much manual, human in the loop, research the account, take steps. It takes time and you can only have so much time in the day. So now you have to measure that. And that's where challenges become. I'm busy doing all of these things. I am not inputting things over here in my spreadsheet. Like something has to give, something has to help me measure that. So that times large organizational reach, you could be in trouble.
Yeah, and that's where like tools like yours come to play because I don't want us marketers to lose our the creative side. I like us to try different things, and just like you, I have the numbers background. I got my undergraduate in computer science. That was all numbers and stuff. But I tend to appreciate a good, let's say, creative and the meta ads, which could make a lot of huge difference. I personally, as a user, I don't want to see bad creatives on Facebook when I log into. But then I was able to buy an editing software on Facebook, not even on LinkedIn, because the creative was amazing. And it was like, it wasn't just about targeting, it was the creative. And if you take that away from marketers, then we can't even deliver those numbers. It's definitely having a good reporting multi-attribution tool is even more important because it frees you up more from doing all this tactical stuff. I use that spreadsheet work, which I don't like. And I tend to appreciate tools that help me figure out multi-touch attribution. Tell me a little bit more about, sorry, what's the name of your company again?
CaliberMind.
CaliberMind, sorry. Is that just a B2B marketing focus, or does it also work for D2C e-commerce? And
No, we live in the B2B
B2B
space. We
space.
serve larger companies that
Yeah,
they're more mature along their data journey.
Yeah.
Meaning they have the data, they have collected the data, they understand what they have and how they want it organized and how they want to measure
Yeah.
output. They just need a vehicle to allow them to do that. The space of multi-touch attribution is a really large space. There's so many players. Heck,
Yes.
HubSpot does attribution, right? And you can choose whether it's first touch, last touch, and whatever else it offers. Google Analytics can show you some of that from your campaigns. The challenge becomes that if every tool shows you something and you're living this cacophony of data and insights, how do you bring this all together? How do you find the true story of what happened, how you
Yes.
closed an account? I remember the situation where I was asked a question, which is a very simple question, but it's $1 million question because it's not the one to find an easy answer to. And the question went like this: where do our opportunities come from? And if you are the person who is over demand gen or over revenue marketing, the minute you answer that question, the follow-up question will be, can we double that? Whatever it is. Can
Yeah.
we triple that? And now if I give you X amount of money, can you make sure that you generate X amount of pipe? Any reasonable marketer knows that there's never one channel of how things happen. If you're selling widgets on TikTok, that's your channel. That's the one channel that you can put more money into and you'll sell more widgets. It's a very simple e-commerce path to conversion, right? In B2B, things don't happen like that. Large buying groups, long sales cycles, you'll forget what happened. You'll lose that timeline. And then you would assume the last thing that triggered for person to reach out and set a meeting is the thing that you need to double down on. And it's not. Right. So again, that data stewardship and data diligence of bringing in all of this into one place where you have the full journey visualized, and you can actually pull that data out and put into something else and analyze it further and marry it with some other insights. That's where the value becomes, where you can still answer the questions of how do I bring in new leads into my marketing organization? That's your first touch. What is the last thing that happens before accounts turn into an opportunity? Great, that's your last touch. But it's a very simplistic way of looking at the universe. You can still answer those things with these questions. But the more you start drilling down and trying to align it to the questions your CFO would ask, you realize that this simplicity has to be elevated to the complexity that multiple enterprise level attribution tools solve for.
It's interesting you said that because we did have a client where they were doing a lot of webinars and stuff on LinkedIn, and we were only in charge of the search marketing, SEO and SEM. And their in-house marketing manager did a little bit of analysis. Is like, hey, I don't think LinkedIn is working. I don't think this webinar working. We're going to double down on search. And they did that. And just us being in charge of the SEO and SEM, okay, more budget for us. Yay. But then our conversions ended up dropping quite a bit because a lot of those consumers would get to know the brand at those webinars and LinkedIn activities that didn't, and on the surface, it didn't look that much. Anyhow, I know we're running out of time. I really appreciate the time. I would love to have you again. I want to ask you a couple of personal questions if you have time. One, you're not marketing. What are you doing?
I am a parent to a 2-year-old Ridgeback. That's the Rhodesian Ridgebacks are a breed that require a lot of time and effort put into them. I love running and I play piano.
Oh, wow. Nice. Good for you. Good for you. I was going to ask you any movies and shows, but maybe even any recent musical concerts, anything that you recommend? Get our mind off.
You know what? I keep going back to the late 90s and early 2000 movies. I feel like that's when the Hollywood had, in my mind, better taste and better production capabilities. The oldies but goodies. Exactly.
That,
Gladiator,
yes.
your Troy, all of those, they're fantastic. I'm just waiting for someone to create something this big now, and doesn't seem like we're there yet. So maybe just gotta wait a little bit more.
Yeah, I've started watching a lot of international movies because they're not so much up to date. They
And
don't
that's
give
yeah,
too much.
and that's different, something that
Something
just
different.
tells a different story for sure.
Cool. Brian, if someone wants have any questions for you about all this stuff we talked about, where they can find you.
LinkedIn is the best place.
I'm going to ask you one more question. Are you going to any more trade shows? Am I going to see you again at B2B in Alfredo, or which conferences you're going to go to?
I got a few on my list, and depending, like I know some of them do not have dates yet. Inbound is one of those that I got on my radar. There are a bunch of good virtual ones that are taking place. So yes, virtual space and inbound.
Cool. Awesome. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for your time.
Al, it's been great. Thank you.
All right. Take care.
Bye bye.